Welcome to this next episode of Being Effective with UpNote. How do you make your notes more visually impactful? Or to put it another way, how do you turn your notes from this into this? Because you see, there's a problem with text notes, isn't there? We need to ask two questions. Firstly, who are you writing your notes for? The answer is you're writing them for your future self. And so the second question is, what does your future self want from the notes that you write? Think about it. Your future self wants to be able to find the information that they want quickly and easily by scanning the notes that you make. By default, text notes make it really hard to do this if it's just straight lines of text. So the way to make the notes scannable is to make them more visually impactful, to give yourself markers through the note that you can fix on when you scan through to find the information you want quickly and easily when you need it. If you want your notes to have visual impact, they need to be scannable and they actually need to look good. And there are so many different things you can do here in UpNote's editor to give your notes that scannable aesthetic. So if you go back to this version here, you'll see that some of the basics that every Notes app can do, pretty much, are things like putting in headers that break up the text. So what I've done here is I'll just copy that header and I'll pop it in here. And then you put another header in now, classic example, Pomodoro apps. Let's bring that in down here. And there we go. And then you'll see one of the other basic features that you can use in almost any application as well is highlights, text color, and bold. Let's bold that because that is actually important. Another basic thing you can do is put in bullet points, or in here we've got numbered lists. What they do is they make it so much more scannable because rather than having, as in this version, a paragraph with 3 questions written in it, instead you have it written out as 3 questions in a numbered list, and that gives it just more visual appeal. What I've done here at the bottom is I've put a divider in. In UpNote you do that very simply by dash 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 and then enter, it puts the divider in. All that does is that separates out different sections of a note. In this particular one, this whole bit here is the note itself, and then this bit underneath is a question and answer. How am I going to apply this? Where I've written out my own stuff there, separate from the notes that I've made. And dividers are really useful for that, and you can do that in UpNote. And then, as I said, colored text and highlights are another way of making your note visual. In UpNote, there are some ways in which you can take it to the next level as well. There are other apps where you can do this, so the principles apply, but I'm going to show you how I do this within UpNote. So the first thing I'm going to show you is collapsible sections. You'll see I've got one down here. Now, what a collapsible section does is it means that you have the information there, but you can hide it so you don't need to see it. And if, for example, I wanted to put all of this in a collapsible section as well, I could do that. And that just makes the note so much more scannable because you can see the sections that you've got, but not all of the information that's within them. It highlights everything that is not hidden. It makes the notes more scannable. It makes it so much easier for you to focus on the specific sections of the note, one at a time. And then if you want to read what's inside, you just expand the section, close it again, and then you can focus on the next one at a time. And one added bonus of UpNote is if you've got a heading or a collapsible section, you can do what I've done here. You can copy the link to it, and then I've just pasted it here. So if I click that, it'll open this collapsible section and take me to it. And I could, if I wanted to, put that in any note within UpNote, click it, and it will take me back to the collapsible section. Quotes are something I use all of the time. That's what this is here. That makes critical information really stand out. And in UpNote, you can make it look really cool as well because you can put in, let's put in a red circle. If you wanted to change the background color, you could change that to orange. All kinds of ways to make key information really stand out by putting in a quote box. And you can do that just by using this button down here or Command-Shift-U, and that creates a quote box. I use quotes all the time. Sometimes I use them for actual quotes, things from an article or a book that I want to quote in my note. Sometimes I will just use it for things that I want to stand out. I use these in my focus and targets just to make these things really stand out, really key. Something else that I've not done here that you can do in UpNote is align your text. So for example, this thing here that's down in orange, and I'll tell you what that is in a second, if I wanted to make it really stand out, I can pop it in the center, and then it just makes it really prominent and it makes it really clear. When I open this collapsible section, the first thing I see is that this is a really good idea. And that makes me want to read what's in the note to find out what is a really good idea. And then last but by no means least, something I often do within UpNote is put things in tables. Now I can do this for many, many reasons. What I've done here is I've put the list that I had in a table, and then next to it I've just made some personal notes. Some other notes apps will allow you to put your notes in columns. UpNote doesn't do that, but to be honest, sticking it in a table is just as effective. Just making it more visual, more easy to see, more easy to scan. So those are some of the ways in which you can make your notes more visually impactful within UpNote. In making your notes visual, there are a few things that you want to think about. Consistency is key. When you're playing around with formatting options, collapsible sections, highlights, colors, bold, all of that kind of thing, it's more helpful for you if you always use the same kind of a system for that. So for example, you always use the same color coding for your highlights. If you don't do that, then each time you look at your note, you're not really sure what the highlights are there for, and you have to think about it. Whereas if you always use the same color coding and the same system, over time you'll learn what that is, and when you scan through your notes, you'll instantly know what the different highlights are trying to tell you. Consistency is key. Less is more. I hate that phrase, I really do. In this case, it kind of makes sense, because if everything's important, then nothing is. If everything is highlighted, then nothing is. The more you highlight, the more you flag up, the more you try and make everything stand out, the less everything stands out, and the less impact they have when you scan through your notes. So less is more. And also, less is more because, as somebody I've spoken to on Twitter has said, if you use too many colours all over the place, then it looks like a rainbow has vomited all over your notes. And that's not the effect you're going for. You don't want to look at them and have them look sickening. You want to look at them and have them look impactful, so you know what's important in the notes that you take. And then my last quick tip, note to self. It may well be that whilst you're taking notes on something, you want to write a note to yourself. That is something that sits outside of the notes that you're making, and is just a little comment that you're making to your future self. Now you'll notice in the example that I showed you that I'd put some notes in code snippets. I'm not a coder, I don't use code snippets for anything else. It makes perfect sense, therefore, for me to use code snippets for note to self. So when I'm making a note on a book, I might put in a little code snippet, note to self, questions for further reflection, points of analysis or evaluation that I'm making of the things that the author is saying. Maybe I don't agree with them. Maybe I've read something else somewhere that disagrees. So I always use code snippets, note to self. It looks very different to everything else. Making your notes more visually impactful is going to be really helpful to find the information that's critical when you're scanning those notes in the future. And for some of us who are more visual thinkers, it's actually really important to help us understand the notes in the first place and actually learn from it and grow from it. So try it out. Go into UpNote, use the highlights, use the colors, use the quotes, use the collapsible sections. Make your notes really pop. Make the key information stand out visually so that when you look at those notes in the future, you know what's important. Turn your notes into something that your future self is going to thank you for. Please do hit that like button if you've liked this video. Please do subscribe to my channel and check out these other videos that are showing up on the screen now about different things that you can do in UpNote. And I'd love to see you on the next video. Thank you very much for watching.